Good evening, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to another episode of Critique Corner with me, Daniel Parker,
And me, DB Fastbinder.
and we have returned for another show, another some talk about pop culture and all that good stuff, fun stuff. If you're returning, welcome back. If you're new, what we normally do is we start off with our thing of the week, which is something that we have been consuming for the past week. And this week is kind of I wouldn't necessarily call it a classic, but
Man,
it's known.
maybe by comparison to certain current things, but that's a low bar.
Yeah. Then we get into some box office talk, and then we get into the news, our news items. So for our thing of the week, we both watched the same thing,
Let me
and
go ahead and share my screen. Also, man, if these strikes keep going on much longer, we might have to switch to one of those channels that reacts to spicy Reddit stories or something.
oh yeah, yeah. So our thing of the week, we decided to watch not Dial of Destiny, but Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Or, as from this movie poster I found, Regno del Tescio di Cristallo. Cristallo,
See,
I guess.
see,
Donde está la biblioteca?
yeah,
All right. So it's not a big secret that Lucasfilm hasn't exactly been firing on all cylinders under Disney.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and one of the interesting consequences of this is that uh, it feels like a lot of the hate the prequels got, and there's like real issues with the prequels, but
mhm.
it's like it was funny. I remember when Episode 7 came out, everyone was like, "Oh, this Star Wars is fixed." This it's like the prequels never happened.
Yeah, yeah,
And then when the Last Jedi came out, it's like everybody did a critical re-examination and said, at least these things have a story.
yeah. And hey, Ninja, good to see you.
And I've gone back and I've watched episodes 1 and 2. I got busy, so I never got around to rewatching 3, which is actually like the, as memory serves, the best of the 3 by a good margin.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, I said, hey, since we have the Dial of Destiny currently not doing much in theaters, what if, maybe Dial of, or maybe Crystal Skull isn't as bad as we remember. Let's give that a go.
yeah. Yeah, and I would say it's not as bad as I remember it being, but it still had some kind of serious flaws to it.
Yes. So thankfully, I watched this last week while we were off, and I took notes.
Yeah.
But I guess before we get into that, a quick rundown. This was the fourth Indiana Jones movie. um, it's bad enough that you have people say that there are only. What are you talking about? There's only 3 Indiana Jones movies. Shut up.
Yeah.
Uh, and it moves the story another 20 years into the future, into the 50s,
Mhm.
and basically it's Indy trying to keep a communist agent played by Kate Blanchett from getting this crystal skull thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the movie starts off, where he and his British friend Mac.
Was Mac in any of the other movies?
No, I actually went back and watched the first 3 movies, and no, he wasn't in any of them. This
Uh,
he was his friend from like World War II. So.
Follow-up question: if you're going to have a British established character, why not have Mac be Phoebe Waller-Bridge's dad in Dial of Destiny?
Yeah, uh,
That
I
might
don't
have
know.
actually, although I guess that would mean acknowledging Crystal Skull. So it's
Yeah. Well, apparently they did acknowledge Crystal Skull at the beginning of the movie.
well, I mean, I guess they did have to deal with Mutt, but
Yeah, and Marion. But anyway, so I don't know if you noticed where they took him to. They took him to Area 51.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Russians just Naruto ran right into it.
right, exactly. Yeah. And then we also learn in that whole sequence that Indy was at Roswell at the crash site where it's the aliens.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, so the crystal skull. They at first they think it's like the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, which there are a few of those.
Right. They're all forgeries. That uh, like I watched this video that was kind of debunking all the ancient alien stuff a while back. And in Ancient Aliens, I believe they go, well, most of the crystal skulls have been found to be forgeries, but the we still have the original crystal skull, which has not been shown to be such. Well, it's because the person who made it refused, or his daughter, I should say, refuses to let anybody analyze it because that's her meal ticket to just go to all these like new age places.
Yeah, yeah, and it helps Dan Aykroyd sell vodka.
Yes.
um, but yeah, so then it turns out that Indy's friend Mac was actually working with the Russians. So now Indy is under suspicion for. Of course, this was after the nuke the fridge thing, which we'll
Yeah,
get
let's talk
into.
about the nuke the fridge thing.
Yeah,
Um, So I remember watching this sequence, which is basically Indy trying to escape from the Russians.
hmm
And I would say that one of the things about this movie is that the action scenes are often rather implausible. You wonder if George was still stuck in prequel mode where he's writing action scenes for Jedi.
maybe. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, but the crystal, I mean, the whole nuking the fridge thing, where Indy ends up at a nuclear test site that happens to be very close to Area 51. This seems like a bad idea to me. Just
yeah,
also, actually, just a quick sidebar. Did you interpret it kind of like that's right? They did basically confirm that Area 51 was the place where the top men were going to look at the Ark.
right. Yeah, because yeah, when they're during the whole action sequence, the box breaks and you see it. Yeah,
Yeah, which is a nice little Easter egg.
yeah,
Um, but he ends up climbing inside of a fridge to survive. Which well, okay, so let's pretend that the fridge was lined with lead, like it's a thick sheet of lead,
yeah,
and that and fridges at the time were basically airtight, and they were not exactly they didn't have the safety precautions they have these days to make sure that you could open them from the inside.
right. Yeah,
But let's just say that and when the nuke goes off for some reason Indy's thing and only Indy's thing is catapulted in a high arc, like what must have been like half a mile away.
yeah,
Even if that would have worked, he used pulp.
yeah. Yeah, every bone in his body would be shattered. Yeah.
He would be a paste, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
He would wish he was dead if he wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
But it sets the tone for a lot of the movie. So I guess it's a good opening scene climax thing.
yeah, maybe. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so then after that, the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover's FBI,
Hmm.
suspects Indy of being a communist. Of course, this is the 1950s Red Scare.
Right.
Yeah, and so then he goes back to his job at the university, and then they basically want to fire him because they're worried he might be a communist, and so then he was let's see,
Okay, so Changus is
oh
positing a different theory that rather than it being the rather than it being the fact that the fridge let him survive, it's that Indy's got like an adamantium skeleton and a healing factor like Wolverine. So
yes,
so, so hence he'd be able to survive. Didn't even
yeah,
need the fridge.
right, yeah. Yeah, Ninja says yeah, the problem with the fridge is it's not even for is that even for an adventure pulp it's very implausible. Yeah.
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 So, yeah, so Indy's on the hunt for this crystal skull at this point,
Yeah.
with the FBI doubting him, and communist agents chasing him down,
Yeah.
and he runs into Shia LaBeouf's character Mutt, who is a out of central casting '50s greaser.
Yes. Uh, yeah, and he tell well he tells Indy about he's that he and his mom are friends with another one of Indy's friends who's played by John
Mhm.
Hurt, and he's going on about the crystal skull, and he thinks he found where the crystal skulls came from, which is basically El Dorado. Um,
Yes,
yeah, yeah,
Red Scare element makes enough sense.
yeah,
Like it was plausible enough that they, because I mean the thing is, you know, what how can Indy defend himself? He says, "Well, look what I did for you guys during World War II." Well, if his British secret agent best friend, or not best friend, but secret British agent friend
yeah.
who also helped them during World War II turned out to be a communist agent, that puts him under suspicion, especially because they had just worked together.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, Red Scare, it's kind of like cooties.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Um, and so then, Indy and Mutt then go to South America.
Yep. I think that was, I think, honestly, okay, people give Shia LaBeouf a lot of crap for his acting.
Yeah.
Um, the guy, as nuts as he went in 2016, the guy is, I think, a decent enough actor. And like, I would say the difference between him and the guy who played Morbius and Joker,
Jared Leto.
Jared Leto. So they're both kind of method actors. Have you ever seen the tank movie Fury?
No, I haven't.
It's pretty decent. Kind of a downer, but
Mm.
Shia LaBeouf is a character in that movie, and he actually intentionally chipped out one of his teeth because he was playing a poor Southern boy on this tank crew, and he wanted to get into it. And I
Yeah.
thought he actually had a pretty convincing performance in that movie.
Hmm.
So like the guy can act, and Mutt was actually, aside from one scene we'll touch on in a minute, like
Yeah.
he was a good sidekick for Indy because he didn't overshadow Indy. He contributed where it made sense for him to contribute. He struggled where it made sense for him to struggle. Indy
Yeah.
was and Indy needed someone to explain things to.
Right. Yeah. He needed someone to play off of. Yeah.
It's like everybody who, or it's like the actors who are on Doctor who complain that their only reason to be there is to say, "What's this, Doctor?"
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So then, and yeah, and then I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate Shia LaBeouf in this movie. I will say, like, I think what kind of soured me was like in the not the first Transformers movie, but the other two movies he was in. He started getting like really annoying in those movies, especially the third one. Um,
See, see, that's the that maybe that's my secret. Is I've only ever seen the first Transformers movie,
yeah,
so I knew him as the I knew him as the tolerable lead in a pretty decent movie.
yeah. And it just says almost everyone is better than Willie. I will maintain Willie. I don't think was as bad as a lot of people like to think. Um, she was annoying. She could be annoying at times, but that was just kind of part of her character.
Yep. But enough of that tangent. So,
Yes.
it's the chase for the Crystal Skull. The communists are trying to track them down.
Hmm.
The There's a very long and actually okay. So once they actually get the Crystal Skull, where I would expect Act Three basically starts about halfway into the movie.
Hmm.
And would it be unfair to describe it as a long, almost entirely unbroken chase scene?
Pretty much. That's a good description for it. Yeah. Yeah.
Because, like, okay, everyone gives crap to that movie about the monkey, or about the scene where Shia ends up on a vine and is swinging with the monkeys, and he manages to catch up with a bunch of cars moving at high speed through the jungle.
Yeah.
That was really implausible. It's like, okay, what's less plausible, that or the fridge thing? I
Yeah.
don't know. But it's like, okay, so they the cars do eventually get to their position. He had some decent action. He fought Kate Blanchett with this, or much fought Kate Blanchett with a sword. Indy
Yeah.
was jumping from car to car, and there was some cool bits in there.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, now it's time for a breather. Nope, no breather. That they end up in a large clearing, and a bunch of army ants swarm them.
Yeah. Ugh.
I happened to mention that to my sister that I had seen the movie recently, and she said that she mentioned that she still like imagined Kate Blanchett's character falling into the ants, and I had to remind her that no, her minions died in these swarms of enormous army ants.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, she almost got swarmed by the ants.
yeah, that might have been what she was remembering.
Yeah. Yeah, and Shenga says he actually liked Shia in the third Transformers. Yeah, yeah. Even when he was freaking out. Yeah. Yeah, he
No,
did
no,
that a
no, no,
lot.
no, 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 no.
No,
He
no.
did that in this movie too, so
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
that seems to be a go-to for him.
Yeah. And then so then they go to the other part of it too is they run into they find Marion.
Yeah, I kind of brushed over that
Yeah.
because I wanted to talk about that darned action scene that because
Yeah.
I was actually finding like the back half of the movie kind of exhausting just because there was so little room to breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, I did too. But yeah, so you find out that the Soviets captured Marion. And I'm not worried about spoilers, by the way.
No,
Um,
this movie is like 15 plus years old.
yeah, and everybody who has seen it has it wanted to see it has seen it. So you find out that Indy is actually Mutt's father,
Yep.
um,
Oh
and
yeah. You also
yeah,
find the professor who had been tracking down the crystal skull, and he's gone loco.
right, yeah, because he looked into the skull and it because
Yep.
Indy does the same thing. He looks into the skull and it does stuff to his mind and so then they go down into the waterfall where three times it drops
Yep.
and they go into the temple and everything. I will say I thought that the temple part when they were going through there felt a little rushed. Oh, hey, where's Marco?
Yeah. They might have decided that they like okay. Well, maybe Stephen and George were sitting around like, look, George, we can either have the monkeys swinging scene or we can have the fight at the temple. I want the monkeys.
Yeah. George, you sure about having aliens in here? I don't know. Well, they're extra dimensional aliens, so it's okay.
Right, it's not outer space aliens.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
But yeah,
uh,
they get to this temple. They put the crystal skull back on the crystal body, and there were a bunch of crystal skulls and a bunch of crystal bodies, and they all merge into one alien who proceeds to fry Kate Blanchett's mind
yeah,
because the whole thing with this is like it's crystal skull. It has psychic powers. It does weird things like draw non-magnetic metals towards it. It can hypnotize people.
yeah,
The ants give it a clear birth when they're being swarmed.
yeah, yeah.
Just vague, vague, vague bullshit superpowers, basically.
Right, yeah. This says I'm pretty sure Steven was being a guest man for this film. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. But in the end, Indy and Marion get back together, and they did something that I thought was really neat at the end, where so they're getting married. Indy's hat gets blown off of the hat rack and lands at Mutt's feet.
All
And
right.
Mutt goes down to pick it up, like, "Oh, it's the passing of the torch." And Indy picks it up and goes,
Yeah,
"Screw you, Shia LaBeouf. I'm still Indiana Jones."
yeah,
So that was I agree with the sentiment that I've heard that's where the character should have ended.
yeah,
That's a fitting send off. He gets the girl. He has a family. He can be to his son what Sean Connery was to him. Uh,
yeah, yeah. I agree, and I didn't want to see him being. I have no interest in seeing him being a broken old man. Um,
Yeah.
and another thing too, I will say, where this movie has a positive over the new one is this movie was actually under budget, unlike the new one.
Ha.
Yeah,
Okay, so let me just look at my notes here, just to see if there's anything I wanted to bring up. Um, so I noticed that I thought it was interesting that their flight path, like when they did the Indiana Jones, red lines on the map thing.
yeah.
One of the points went through Cuba, so maybe wonder what year that came out because I forget when the communist revolution happened there.
It was right around that same time. I want to say 50, 58, 59.
Yeah, so that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, John Williams did a great job on this soundtrack because like all the scenes had the tension you needed, or like they elevated the mood, and he was good at weaving in the Indy theme. Like it's like you'd have like a tense music, and then when Indy did something cool, da, 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 da,
The-
da,
yeah.
and so you remember the South Park episode that when around this movie came out where it portrayed George and Stephen having their way in the butt repeatedly with Indy.
Yes.
I don't see this movie as deserving that response.
I don't either. No.
Like it's not nearly that bad.
Yeah.
I also want to say Kate Blanchett was having so much fun with her moose and squirrel Russian accent
Yeah.
and just hamming it up in all of her scenes.
Yeah. I think she barely even blinks too. If you notice, like her eyes are always really wide, and
No, I didn't, but that makes sense. So if I was going to start assign this like a out of 10 rating, what would you give it, Daniel?
I'd give it a 7.
Yeah, 6, 7, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It's like I remember even at the time I enjoyed it enough. The second time around, I got a little bit exhausted during the back half, but I thought it was okay until that point.
Yeah.
Actually, okay to good up until that point, and there's nice little bits all throughout. It's
Yeah.
just George was being a bit too silly a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like poetry. They rhyme.
But
Yeah.
boy, and this movie made a lot of money, though it had a big drop off in the second weekend, apparently.
Oh.
Shock of
Yeah.
shocks.
Yeah.
Let's see how
But
the new one is doing because we kind of with us taking the week off last week, we kind
yeah.
of lost out on getting to report on that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh yeah, we have Barbenheimer coming, which I've been kind of out of the loop. I That's just like people. I feel like people are willing the box office to not be completely dead this summer. So it's like, hey, here's the hype. There's a movie for everyone. Please come buy tickets and popcorn.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
Um, so let's kind of go down here in order. This summer has just been really hard to track and keep and analyze because everything has been underperforming except for little weird things.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Um, even Sound of Freedom is doing really well, which is
Yeah,
I attribute all of that to word of mouth.
right. It's got to be.
Yeah.
The big surprise for me though is that Mission Impossible is not being another Top Gun at all.
Yeah.
Like it's the thing is this series doesn't really. It's kind of like the fast movies where it's more of an international than a domestic box office.
Yeah.
And 250 million over the course of actually what also makes it hard to analyze is that they released it last or on a Tuesday for some reason.
Yeah, that's right. They really wanted to get an extra jump on it.
Yeah, that was just strange. It also makes it mildly irritating to analyze its first weekend because you look at the first weekend and you go, oh, 54 million, that's a huge bomb. And it's like, well, if you look at it up to that point, it's 78 million. So
Yeah.
still, I, Actually, let's give it a quick comparison to Indiana Jones, which came in fourth on its third weekend. Yeah, Indy is ahead of it, but that's comparing first week to third week.
Yeah. Yeah, Ninja says the Sound of Freedom is both word of mouth and Christian community's willingness to support anything that seems to have mainstream success. Yeah, there's a lot of that too.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about identity politics is that it has made people, like just across the board, more interested in supporting things that seem like them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I suspect that might be why Brian Michael Bendis made Miles a twofer by being half black and half Puerto Rican, but
Yeah.
that's a rather cynical take on it. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, Sound of Freedom actually crossed $100 million today, which that was a number I was not expecting that one to hit. Period.
No, I wouldn't either. Yeah.
Like that was just shocking.
Hmm.
Still no international release, but
Yeah.
that one might just be digital only internationally.
Yeah.
Um,
Probably. Yeah.
my one of the managers at my company actually ended up seeing it because well he and his wife got tickets through a group that was buying tickets for it, and they proceeded to pay it forward by buying tickets to give to somebody else.
Mm.
So, and some people have been saying, "Oh, this isn't a real box office result because it's just church groups buying up the tickets." And it's like, if people are actually going and seeing it, and then they're paying for a ticket for somebody else, that's still a sale.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah. It's not the traditional way of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Indiana Jones. When people were going, "Yeah, this thing isn't even going to cross 350 million," I was like, nah, that seems off.
Yeah.
Eh, It it's not as off as it felt at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. Yeah. And you know, this, and we'll probably get into a little bit of that later. But you know, despite what some people might say, no, it has not broken even.
oh my God. Let's see, did I save that? No, I forgot to save that story. You know what?
Oh,
Give me a moment here, Daniel. Keep the people entertained. I think we
okay.
have a. I think I need to find that link because I forgot about that
Yeah.
for the week's sources.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, the other thing too, I wanted to kind of mention real quick with Mission Impossible is it's probably going to outperform Indiana Jones.
Yep.
More than
All,
likely. Yeah.
almost certainly at this stage.
Yeah. And I think too, that, and it's not gonna do Top Gun Maverick numbers. I mean, I may have said this, you know, a few weeks back, but it's not gonna do it won't do a billion, but it'll probably do like 700, 800.
Yeah, it's all going to depend on how it legs out.
Hmm.
But again, deucedly hard to analyze because of launching on a Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah, and from what I've heard too, like it's not out. It's basically performing the same way you normally see with a Mission Impossible movie, and you know, and
Right.
apparently those movies do tend to leg out. So
Yep. So we'll see.
yeah,
Um, yeah, CBR is trying to claim that it's broken even with its budget.
no. Either either who the person
Jeremy
who
and
wrote
Dick.
this article, or yeah, is it okay? They're either an idiot, they don't know how box office works, or they're being dishonest, or maybe a combination of all three.
Yep. So as we've gone over before, uh, you get roughly a little bit over 50% on average from the U.S. because out of the goodness of their hearts.
Right. Yeah.
Internationally, you average like 40 million, or 40 million, 40-ish percent, depending on the market.
Right.
Then China, you get a quarter. Although this movie is completely bombed in China, so
Yeah.
not a big concern.
Yeah.
But the only way you can do that is to look at the fact that the movie has crossed 300 million finally. It's like, oh, the stated budget is 300 million, ergo break even. And that isn't even getting into marketing
Yeah.
or the or what we can reasonably suspect are massive budget overruns because they kept having to reshoot this thing during COVID.
Yeah. And as we learned a couple of weeks ago from Doctor Strange Multiverse, it probably was well over the stated budget.
Right. We can't trust those numbers. Like we kind of have to go by them because otherwise we're weird conspiracy theorists massaging numbers like Karl Rove in the 2012 election.
Yeah.
But we yeah no you don't no cookie for you CBR.
No, no.
That's as far as other surprises. I think the one that I find the most interesting is that Elemental has actually developed some pretty decent legs. Because like if you look at its where it's in the chart compared to its initial opening,
Yeah.
it's actually well above the numbers chart or projection here.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, it's yeah, only by CBR math has this thing made a profit.
Yeah.
Um, because $200 million production budget. Um, Actually, I question how much they spent on marketing because I kept seeing commercials for this thing, but other people keep saying they didn't.
Yeah. I would imagine they probably spend a good chunk of money on the marketing. I'd probably 100, maybe 150 million.
Yeah, even if we assume they actually did they do a Super Bowl commercial? I want to say they
I,
did a Super
I
Bowl
I think
commercial.
they did a Super Bowl commercial. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember seeing that and thinking, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah. And Super Bowl commercials are, I think that's what, like 10 million,
Yeah,
something like
something
that.
something nuts like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if we assumed 100 million, like you're still in like the 500 to 600 million dollar range to break even. It is
Yeah.
not hitting that.
No.
But I think that these results are kind of indicative of the word of mouth on it is decent.
Mhm.
Um,
Not great, but it's
right. And you know what? If you have the kids at home from on summer vacation, and you just want to go somewhere that's cool, have a big tub of popcorn, and just not worry about it and you're sick of seeing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's probably where this movie is getting some pickup traffic.
Yeah. Yeah. And uh, what was I gonna say about it? It's probably I'm assuming it's better than Lightyear.
It would almost have to be.
Yeah.
What I've heard about it is that the most you can say about it is kind of a vague premise.
Yeah.
Like there's a bit in the trailer where the two lead characters just completely defeat a chain link fence. Like the one oozes through it because he's water, and the other one just walks through it because she's fire. And one of them says, I don't know why we even make these things. Like you're undermining the veracity of the world.
Yeah.
Also, if you're fire people, why do you live in a why do you have water in your house if that will kill you?
Yeah. That doesn't make any
Like
sense.
water mains in your house.
Yeah.
So it's just like it, it, it sounds like it's just a cute, harmless idea, but it really feels more like an Illumination movie than a Disney movie or a Pixar movie.
Yeah, and they could be trying to copy Illumination, thinking, "Oh, well, we can do that too." And
Which boy, that's a bit like the Yankees looking at the Seattle Mariners uh, for tips on how to run a baseball club.
yeah.
I can say
Oops.
that because they're my team.
Yeah.
But so yeah, you wonder if this movie had just been tightened up a little bit. If it had that Lassiter magic applied to it, it
Yeah.
it probably could have done all right.
Yeah. Well, interesting you bring up Lasseter because that CNBC interview that Iger did, they asked him about firing Lasseter, and
Hmm.
he said if that had an effect on Pixar, and he said, "Well, we've let a lot of people go that it's really affected the company." I'm like, yeah, okay,
Sure, vague answer. Why not?
yeah,
Um, the other thing is a Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken, complete disaster. So it's
yeah,
at least it was cheap.
yes, and just get it out of there, let's get on and move on.
Yeah, Asteroid City has made nearly another 10 million on top of it, and that's a
Wow.
niche movie. That's as niche as you get.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Also, oof! Last weekend, The Flash brought in a grand total of $95,000.
Ouch.
Really shouldn't have gone out there saying this was the best superhero movie ever and trying to imply that people like Stephen King and Tom Cruise liked it because now you've destroyed your credibility, James Gunn.
Yeah. Man,
So, yeah, the no good, very bad box office continues. Actually,
yes.
was this the daily? Oh, excuse me. This was the domestic daily chart for yesterday. My bad.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
95,000 for yesterday was nothing to.
Yeah.
It's better than for the weekend, but oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Ugh.
Yeah.
But Daniel, there's still hope, right? They can go make new, better movies because the means of
Yeah.
production are still open, right?
Right. Yeah. It's not like there's a strike going on.
Like multiple strikes going on.
Multiple strikes. Yeah. Oh wait.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. So the SAG-AFTRA, also known as
Screen
I
Actors
was
Guild,
going to say the Film Actors
American.
Guild, just as for the
Yeah.
for the Team
It's
America reference, but
yeah. Yeah.
but to be more on point, they are just like the writers on strike, and I feel like basically while we were making fun of some of the writers' demands, they had decent points.
Hmm.
Streaming is like we've talked about how streaming is kind of a fool's game. Streaming has been good for virtually nobody in the entire
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. And oh hey D Rhino, good to see you, man.
Hey,
Yeah. So why don't they make their own studios of writers and actors? Well,
it's not quite that easy.
yeah.
It, there's like different tiers of production difficulty.
uh,
Like I'd say like the easiest thing to get to break into are novels because all you need is a word processor and patience.
yeah.
Next up would be like comic books because you just need to coordinate a few people or you need to draw lots and lots of pictures.
Yeah.
Um, Next up would be something like theater because people don't expect a lot of special effects like 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 you can put on a Broadway play with technically no set at all if your actors are able to sell the scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm not sure if I would say it's a debate if video games or movies are harder to produce. Because on the one hand, well, I would say probably more man hours go into a video game, but
Yeah.
you have to do a lot more stuff in physical meat space with a movie, even in the era of CGI.
Yeah. I would say they're both pretty even on difficulty level.
It's kind of why you notice that Gamergate resulted in no produced games with their philosophy, but Comicsgate completely changed the game on crowdfunding.
Yeah.
But it's different levels of complexity.
Hmm. Yeah. Of course, it's not supposed to be easy, but they either keep complaining or shut up and try to improve their lives, start interfering. Yeah, it's kind of hard to feel sorry for some of them.
Yeah.
Especially the more successful ones. I kind of attribute it. I kind of look at it the same way I would look at like a strike in or a lockout in a professional sports league,
Hmm.
which there have been a few of those in recent memory. And it's hard for it's hard for the general public to feel sorry for guys who are making tens of millions of dollars a year.
Right.
And you know, it's
Uh, right. Like just to here's an example for you of something kind of similar. To bring up South Park again, that's a lot of references to those creators this episode.
oh yeah,
Um, you remember the episode where they talked about digital piracy, and you had like some sort of ghost of Christmas spirit, someone person taking them around to show them that it wasn't a victimless crime. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
now, do you see that jet? It's a slightly smaller jet than Pearl Jam could have afforded otherwise.
yeah,
When if you're trying to, that's not who you emphasize. You emphasize the starving artist who's trying to move up in the world, right?
right, yeah,
Uh, it's a thing where everybody's getting screwed, honestly, because like just for example, um, the studios. And I'm like I see the points with the actors more than the writers. The studios want to get a digital copy of an actor, like just scan them
yeah.
in exchange for 1 day's pay with no residuals.
I can see why they would have an issue with that.
Um, I would say that from what I've been hearing, Fran Drescher, as the head of the actors, is doing a good job with the optics because
Yeah.
what you don't want to do is again, I have Tom Cruise out there complaining about not getting his money. You know,
Right. Yeah.
you emphasize, hey, most of the actors are only working 15% of the time, so they aren't working enough to get the benefits that we've done because they fall into that threshold.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's good to have somebody like her who let's face it, she had one successful TV show in her career, and that's basically it. And I'm sure I don't know what the residual checks are like from that TV show. You know, but yeah, it's good that it's somebody like her. Yeah, like you're saying, as opposed to somebody like George Clooney. You know.
Yeah, like just and also streaming, they kind of made a mistake of not really negotiating better streaming terms when
Mhm.
it was a nascent technology.
Yeah.
Because now you get ridiculous situations like this. Mandy Moore says she once got a check for a penny for This Is Us streaming residuals.
A penny. D. Rhino says, and watch them screw each other over by theft and fraud. Apologies, I'm enjoying this Hollywood Civil War. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of that too. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah,
That it's not like I really enjoy a lot of what they're putting out anyway.
yeah,
But I guess the people I feel worse for this are in all this are the people who have like the trade jobs, like people who put together the sets, handle the catering,
yeah.
and put up the lights, all of the little jobs that are behind the scenes jobs that really support that area.
Right. Yeah. And it just says the main problem is that screenwriters and actors need to be willing to say, "I'd rather work as a garbage man than getting less pay for my work here." Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing is that we just because of the glut of content we've had lately for streaming services, there might just be too many people in Hollywood at this point.
Yeah, there's definitely a quantity over quality issue going on.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's like, see, yeah, be honest, remember what they call us, the is and the phobes. Yeah, there is that. It's just
Yeah,
not to put it. I, I want to be fair to everybody, and so somebody being a jerk on one issue does not mean that they deserve to be taken advantage of by an uncaring studio system. Now I can
yeah,
decry the stupid things they say and the crap work they put out, but if they're if they have a job, they deserve to be paid what they're owed for it.
They need to be compensated. Yeah. And and to this whole thing with Mandy Moore, her getting a penny. Like I think it was Chris Gore was talking about that on Midnight's Edge, that there was actually a bar in Hollywood that if you bring in a check, for a residual check that's less than $1, they'd give you a free beer. And he said, like, the wall was just covered in these residual checks that were like this. They were like a penny, and like,
Yeesh. Yeah. Yeah, Disney produced NBC drama This Is Us. In an interview with the Hollywood Reporter, says she received checks ranging from a penny to 81 cents in return for the hit show's streaming deal with Hulu. So yeah, something's got to give. I just don't know what it
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. And Deron says, "I'm only fair to those who are genuine and hardworking to reach their best." Um, but yeah, I mean, it's. I think this is probably going to go on for a while.
Yeah, especially with the studio saying they basically want to starve out the writers.
Yeah, and they may very well do that.
Yeah, I wonder. I would be very curious to see if a lot of self-published novels are suddenly finding their way to Kindle.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah.
Because or like short stories or things like that. Because I know if I was in their position, it's like, well, I can't write. Actually, I don't know if that does that. No, I think I've heard people like Kamran Pasha make reference to during like the last strike working on novels and things like that. So I don't think it stops you from writing anything.
Right. Yeah. It just stops you from writing screenplays, and
Yeah.
yeah. And don't worry about it, D Rhino. We understand. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're in a different position because we're here commenting, and we want to be accurate and fair as much as we can.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're that doesn't invalidate your position on things.
Yeah.
How did we put it? We try not to go on unhinged rants here. We try to go on very hinged rants.
Yes.
But yeah, so this has just put a stop because basically with the writer's strike, that hobbled productions, but they could continue on as long as they didn't need any major rewrites.
Yeah. But this is shutting Hollywood down. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say that animation might be able to continue because I seem to recall that the writers for animation are a different union, so they weren't actually on strike to start with.
Yeah. Though I don't know if the voice actors, though. I don't know if they're
Mm,
in the same
right,
union or not.
that could be awkward.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I mean, it's just kind of
Yeah.
Wicked director says filming was so close to being finished before actors strike. Very painful to put a halt to it. Oh, that's a
Oh.
shame. I actually saw Wicked on Hollywood and on Broadway back in the day with the original cast, and that was a great
Wow.
production.
Wow. That was not an easy ticket to get.
No, I don't know how my grandfather managed it. I know it was very expensive, so I'm always very grateful to him for that.
Yeah.
Also got to see Doctor Octopus as Fiddler on the Roof.
I did. Oh no, I didn't. My parents did. I saw Harvey Firestein as in Fiddler on the Roof. That was awful.
Oh, sorry to hear
But
that.
but I did see Spamalot with the original cast, so that was a lot of fun.
Oh, nice. With that, with what, Tim Curry?
Tim Curry, Hank Azaria, and David Hyde Pierce.
Oh, I didn't know Hank Azaria was in that one.
Yeah, yeah. He did all the John Cleese roles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, if we're talking Broadway, I think we're kind of
I
off
think
this topic.
yeah, we've
Not a
gone off.
hugely detailed thing, but it's happening, and it's just kind of yeah. There's actually, I would say the big picture is that there's not enough money flowing in because people aren't going to the theaters and paying for cable packages. Streaming is unprofitable, which means that there's not enough money flowing in to distribute to anybody, even if realistically, Mandy Moore was a major character in This Is Us. If people are actually watching it in significant numbers, then pay up, Hulu.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I have this feeling that once the streaming services consolidate down a bit, I think we're going to see prices. They're going to have to raise,
Yeah, they're gonna have to go to like $20 a month at
right?
least.
Which some premium packages for Max and Netflix are already in that category, but that I think that might just have to be like you don't want ads, $20, pay us,
Yeah.
because again something's got to give. There's just not enough money going into the pool anymore. Also,
Yeah.
it's a good time to be into video games, books, manga, comics,
Yeah.
live streams.
Hmm.
Basically, I think the other thing is that Hollywood isn't and movies in general aren't as necessary for entertainment as they used to be.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
man, now there's I think as sympathetic as I'm being, I think there's one production that nobody is sad is on halt right now.
Yes.
So this kind of played out last week, but we couldn't resist commenting on it.
Yeah.
So Daniel, tell the people about this.
Okay, so this production photo from the filming on the live action Snow White got out, and what we're looking at here is our seven dirty hippies who are supposed to be dwarfs.
I mean, one's a dwarf, or he's kneeling. Can't
Yeah,
quite tell from this angle.
yeah, but the rest of them clearly are not. And now some people surmise that they're stand-ins and that they're going to be like CGI'd in. That could be it.
What I was hearing was that it is that they're actors who resemble, or they're actors or people who resemble the final cast.
Uh,
And so it's like a matter of like they're like test photos to like make sure that everybody's skin color goes with their outfit.
yeah.
I have not, but I do know that Peter Dinklage kind of cost Six Dwarves a job by complaining about the dwarves being treated like fantasy people.
Yeah. Which if I was a little person actor, I would be furious with him.
Yeah, bad enough they used perspective changes to not have them in The Hobbit
Yeah.
or the Rings.
Yeah. Yeesh.
I say half in jest, but
Yeah.
uh, but here. So Daniel, I think this is kind of in a similar category as Little Mermaid. Daniel, if they made a very true to the 1937 original version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, would you be interested in seeing that in theaters?
If they kept it true to the original, yeah, I might go see it. I may have even taken my mother to see it because that was her favorite movie.
Okay, so you're in a different boat than I am because I can't think of anything where I can't think of a scenario where I would be lining up to get a ticket for a live action remake of Snow White. But
Mm,
so you're in the market, I am not.
yeah,
But I also can't see a world where I'm terribly outraged about the changes they've been making.
yeah. I mean, it's of course the way Disney is now. It's not unexpected that they would make the changes that they're making with it.
Right. I mean, Snow White described as skin as white as snow, hair like a raven, lips red as something from the original
Yeah,
German story.
yeah.
I'm sure that this actress is a lovely lady. She did not
Mhm.
quite match that.
No, and Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, they probably shouldn't have done. They shouldn't even probably even attempt a live action Snow White movie for the reason that casting Snow White was going to be virtually impossible.
Right? There aren't a lot of people out there who actually have skin white as snow.
Yeah, yeah,
Like there's very pale people, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
The, and D Rhino says, she's white. Stop blackwashing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. So I am about consistency. I would say,
Mhm.
like like at work or in my daily life, the thing that bothers me the most is do this. No, I wanted this instead.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
Right? Like, oh, you didn't tell me that this document needed to include X step. Okay, I'll go back and completely rewrite it.
yeah. Jeez.
Thank you for not telling me that.
Yeah.
This doesn't
Uh,
happen super often, by the way, but yeah,
okay.
it's just an example.
Yeah.
Um, I remember I'm old enough to remember when M Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender came out,
Oh yeah.
and there was a big controversy about the fact that several of the actors who were originally Inuit uh, were recast with white tween Nickelodeon stars.
Yeah. Yeah. People. Yeah. I remember that, and I also remember when Scarlett Johansson was cast to play Major Kusanagi in Ghost in the Shell.
Right. When
Yeah.
the Japanese studios wanted her because they said, oh, if it's a big American actor, more people will go see the movie.
Yeah. And if you look at her in that movie, she kind of looks like Major Kusanagi in the anime and the manga. Yeah.
But okay, the standard is that a character's casting should reflect their original version.
Right.
Uh, I also remember there's actually Scarlett Johansson seems to end up in the middle of a lot of these. There was also a thing where a movie about a real life trans character was canceled because Scarlett was cast as that character for the movie.
Right. And yeah, they wanted a trans actor. Yeah.
So, okay, the standard has been set. A character needs to resemble their original version uh, in all demographic ways that are possible.
Yeah.
So then, fast forward, and the Snow White. Actually, I'm going to put this a little differently than people might expect with that build-up. So, Daniel, let me tell you about the story of Snow White.
Okay.
She has the name Snow White for no apparent reason. Just a nickname she picked up at some point. Maybe she liked the booger sugar or something. Um, and she deals with a group of seven. Apparently, they're seven highwaymen of of a like, where they're described as pirates or highwaymen or something. Uh, who help her when an evil queen is trying to help her, and also she isn't saved by love's true kiss at the end. From everything I've heard in the interviews.
Oh boy.
So, in what sense is this movie Snow White?
It's not.
Right,
It's a separate fairy tale story
right.
called
Like
Snow White. Yeah.
it's weird. It's like with all the other ones, they're so darned unimaginative with these live action remakes. Like the most they do is just destroy the charm of the original animation, like with Lion King and Little Mermaid, and add unnecessary stuff from external sources.
Yeah. It's well. I remember somebody pointed out that the reason that Disney is kind of doing this is because they lost that cash cow they had with the quote unquote Disney Vault. Constantly releasing and re-releasing their movies,
Hmm.
and so this is their way of re-releasing their movies, but in a different way, and it's
And the weird thing is that, like, okay, so we've all seen behind the scenes stuff of superhero movies where the costume looks really awful and fake. It's designed to be CGI'd over to improve it.
right. Yeah. And it just says, I remember the days where they tried to make live action remakes.
Yes, the
Yeah.
halcyon far off year of 2023. Because,
Yes.
like, say what you will about that Little Mermaid movie, it's basically the original with weird racial stuff needlessly inserted into it, and not even just not like the main character, just like we pointed out where every one of King Triton's kids looks like they came from a different mother, which
Yeah. Like,
which and the weirdness around Prince Eric. I think like he's white but he has black parents. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Because he's adopted or something?
Yeah. Weird. But yeah. I mean, yeah. I
Like, it's okay to just make something new. I
yeah.
understand you're trying to bank off of the Snow White name, but if you'd had, I don't know, the Princess and the Seven Highwaymen,
Yeah.
or the Princess and the Band of Seven, as an original fantasy movie where like an evil queen is trying to capture her out of jealousy or whatever,
Yeah.
or like she has some sort of MacGuffin, that could be a successful movie,
Yeah. And and then you could say it's in the spirit of Snow White.
right? Inspired by Snow White.
Yeah. It's
But there's not
yeah.
there's not a single detail that I've heard about this movie that sounds like it's Snow White.
Yeah. And and kind of go back to what you were talking about with consistency, like, and D Rhino kind of mentioned in the chat, oh, make Blade white. It's like, I mean, can it's like, okay, well, when is it okay and when is it not okay to change these characters the way they look? And clearly, we all know that if you like you did that, if you made Blade white, or if you made like, I was watching a WDW Pro video, and they said, well, I don't think it would go over very well if they did the live action Mulan, and Mulan is played by an Irish actress.
Right. Yeah. Or like the constant troll suggestion, oh, we need to recast Chadwick Boseman. Get all new, all different Black Panther. He's Channing Tatum now.
Yeah, yeah.
Or Ryan Gosling, I think was
Ryan Gosling.
he's the troll suggestion.
Yeah,
So it's just weird, and it's yeah, I think that this is a case where as soon as they had that controversy around casting seven dwarves, because how dare seven dwarves get work,
yeah,
uh, they should have probably pulled the plug on the whole project and just like, okay, we're just making an original fantasy movie, or we're just calling it a day, because we've now changed. We're now having to change too many elements.
yeah, yeah,
Again, like nobody has seen frame one of this movie because frame one of this movie doesn't exist yet. It could be a perfectly good kid-friendly fantasy movie, but that expectation that's planted in your brain by the name Snow White, you're just going to be distracted going, well, that isn't what that's like. That isn't what that's like.
yeah. Yeah, I don't remember that in the original movie. I don't remember her doing that. I don't remember that. Yeah.
It's actually an advantage that a company that wasn't Disney would have making a Snow White movie. Because you like, yeah, you
Yeah.
have things like, remember Snow White and the Huntsman, that Kristen Stewart movie back when she kind of had her career.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Uh, like that's a very, I think, didn't have Thor in it.
Yes. He played the
Yeah,
huntsman. Yeah.
yeah. Like like that's kind of a unique take on that, right? Like it's
Yeah. And from what I remember, it actually was fairly successful when it came out.
so it's like you can, but because Disney's kind of made the known version of Snow White, they're kind of trapped by that. So just make something different, you dummies.
Yeah.
Avoid a lot of controversy. Now, okay, so I've been trying to steelman this movie. if this is what the final characters look like, this looks kind of awful and like a high school drama production.
Yeah, yeah, and also too with Snow White's dress kind of looked a lot like that too. It just
So,
looked really cheap.
are they planning to save it in post with CGI? I don't know.
Uh, yeah,
But overall, this movie is just not. It was never for me. I can't get too offended by it, but it just seems like a lot of unnecessary getting in your own way.
yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it's just like I said, they probably shouldn't have even attempted it in the first place. Just
Yep.
you know,
Now, one thing that could be a reasonable attempt, and this is like, oh God, please don't screw this up.
yeah,
Sir Kenneth Branagh to direct live action Gargoyles movie.
it could be good if
Right.
yeah.
Because this occurred to me while I was on my walk earlier. You know what? They can't do too much to gargoyles.
Make it woke.
Make it woke. Because gargoyles was always woke. Uh, Lexington, secretly gay. Elisa Maza, half black, half Native American. What was the theme of the show? Uh, People, strangers in a strange land, learning the new ways of a new world.
Yes, and facing discrimination. Yeah.
Yep, facing discrimination and the evils of capitalism in the form of Thanatos,
Oh yeah.
who who is trying to steal their powers.
Yes. Brilliantly voiced by Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah, like I remember, like there was actually a time where I didn't really like Star Trek because I had a kind of obnoxious roommate, and we were watching, like, or I was watching the Gargoyles DVDs, and he just tried to make Gargoyles seem like a subset of Star Trek because of all the voice actors. Like, shut up!
Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of Star Trek actors on that
I just want to
were on
enjoy this
there.
on my own.
Yeah. And Ninja points out that Elisa was also into gargoyles. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's pansexualism, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there's not really much you can do to wokeify it. Like the only thing you could, because like they're not going. As much as we were just joking in the last one, they're not going to have a redheaded Irish woman as Elisa Maza.
Right.
Um, Now, I would say my concern, and I hadn't realized that you had watched it more. You've watched it more recently than I have.
Yeah, I,
My
I watched it. Yeah, like sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I watched it like about 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's better than like the 10 plus when the DVDs came out.
yeah,
But what occurred to me about this is that I'm not sure what you could do for a movie that would really capture it, because this one was unique on the Disney afternoon,
yeah.
because most of the rest of them were like you might have a one or two parter,
Mhm.
like usually at the start of the show to like introduce the premise. Like I
Yeah,
remember Tailspin starting off with like a two-parter semi-movie.
yeah. So did Ducktales. Yeah,
But Gargoyles would have like whole storylines. It was kind of unique that way, along with like the X-Men and Spider-Man cartoons at the time, where everything was like part of a long saga.
right. Yeah, yeah. I remember what was it, season 2 when they had the whole Avalon thing.
Oh God,
That that was like 12 episodes.
was that only 12 episodes? I remember it being so many more.
It may have been more. I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, I remember it being really long.
Yeah. So it's like, what story do you tell in the length of a movie? Because you got to cover them being betrayed in Scotland and trapped in stone for 1,000 years.
Yeah,
You've got to have Thanatos wake them up. Or is it no, Xanatos? Xanatos.
Okay, yeah.
I got confused because Thanatos is actually the name of like a Greek or Roman god or something.
Ah, okay.
But you got Xanatos. Xanatos has to wake them up. They have to initially trust Xanatos as they are meeting Elisa. You got to establish that trust. Then you got to have them realize that Xanatos is trying to use them.
Yeah.
That's a lot to cover in 2 hours.
Yeah, they'd have to do that. That would have to be like the first act.
Right. So are they gonna Spider-Verse it or Mission Impossible it, where it's Gargoyles the movie part 1 of 2?
Yeah, maybe.
But we know like all these movies that, oh, we're gonna save the villain you actually want to see for the sequel.
Yeah, yeah.
That rarely seems to work out.
Yeah.
So it's doable. There's probably gonna have to be some narrative changes that take place.
Yeah, and if Kenneth Branagh's doing it, it'd probably be like his Thor movie. Have a little bit of that Shakespearean tragedy going on.
Which, considering that half of the characters in the latter half of Gargoyles are just cribbed directly off of Shakespeare
Yeah, yeah,
and Puck from early on, now that I think about it,
yeah.
and Macbeth for that matter.
Yeah.
Theater nerds.
Yeah.
Um, I guess if I was going to take a stab at turning this into like a reasonably length movie, what you might do is have the initial perspective be Elisa and the stuff in Scotland be like brief flashbacks.
Mm. Yeah, they could. Yeah, you could start it off with start off with Elisa, and then her encountering the gargoyles, and them waking up, and then
Mm-hmm.
then like they tell her their story of their betrayal and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, like to really like, I don't know. There's a lot of plots that are hard to put into a 2 hour movie. I think this would work better as a TV series, but well,
Mm.
no, it's like, okay, then there's already a TV series.
Yeah.
You don't want a shot for shot remake of that either.
No, it's fine the way it is.
So yeah, although with the situation with Disney and Hollywood and everything, I think this has a really decent chance of getting canceled.
Yeah, I think so too. Given the strikes, and then you often hear about projects like this popping up, and like, oh, they're gonna do a live action of this, or they're rebooting that, and then it doesn't
Right.
happen.
Right. And honestly, if I'm a bean counter over at Disney, Gargoyles was successful, but it wasn't. It has a cult following.
Yeah.
That cult following was also kids 20, nearly 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah, so you'd be marketing it to, 30, 35, 40-year-olds.
Basically, us and anyone in our age bracket who has kids to drag along.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
And yeah.
all we've gotten from Gargoyles in recent years are repeated attempts at getting an ongoing comic to happen.
Yeah.
And with modern comics being what they are, we're talking like you're lucky if you get 10,000 in sales.
Yeah.
Actually, let's see here. Oh, what was the name of that website with had the comic sales estimates?
Omicron.
Comicron. I'm just going to pull this up in a different window. Comicron.
Yeah.
Let's look up. Let's see here. By the way, Comicron has given up because now that we don't have Diamond as the only game in town, really nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Right. Gargoyles. What do we got here? Okay, so we have their rough estimates. It's just they don't even. That's right. They gave up on actually trying to figure out real numbers. They just now give like a range.
Oh.
Okay. First one that comes up was from that's right. There was a comic back in 2007.
Oh.
Gargoyles number 6 from Slave Labor Comics brought in 5,433 copies at a time where World War Hulk number 5 brought in 145,000.
Ah,
An
hmm.
All-Star Batman and Robin, The Boy Wonder brought in 97,000, and that comic was awful. Number 8 even.
Ooh,
People love that Jim Lee art, I guess.
yeah.
Actually, just showing how far the comic industry has slipped since 2007. Nothing in the top 10 is under 91,000 on here.
Ouch.
Ouch, indeed.
Jeez.
But back on the topic.
Yeah.
So it's not like the comic has been doing gangbusters and revitalizing the community and making new fans. It's strictly a niche product for the people who still really think about gargoyles on a daily basis.
Yeah. It's I guess the closest comparison would be something like He-Man.
Yeah, it's like He-Man for people 10 years younger.
Yeah. Yeah, because he,
Just
yeah,
just
yeah.
Gargoyles is never $1 billion a year toy brand.
No, and I don't even I vaguely remember the toys when I was a kid.
That's probably part of why Gargoyles never really hit the huge limelight. So they never had the money because they never put too much into the toys. Like there were some toys, but
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, they didn't go all in into it like a lot of other companies did with other children's properties.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if this does get made, hopefully Kenneth Branagh does justice to the property.
yep. And with the guy behind the first Thor movie behind it, there's a shot.
Yeah,
So this is when I'm on my optimism meter, with a 0 being the new Snow White and a 10 being what would make me an optimistic to a 10. Um, George Lucas buying back Lucasfilm and promising not to directly write the movies, but to instead supervise them.
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
Um, I'll give this like a 7 on that meter
yeah,
because there's a chance. And you
yeah,
know what? We have so few chances for good remakes coming out of the House of Mouse these days. Let's hope that one sneaks through.
yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, I think we've exhausted these topics for one night.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. We appreciate it. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell for notifications, and we will see you all next week.
Yep. Night, everyone.
Night,
Thanks for
everybody.
joining us.